Back in 1992, when I was 12 years old, I went fishing with my uncles and cousins. It was getting late. Me and my cousins were around the same age. We were in the back of my uncle's truck, while my uncles drove back to my grandmother's. It was around 2 in the morning. As we were driving down the dark country road, I noticed this strange light in the sky that seemed like it was following us. I told my cousins, "Hey, look," at which point they noticed the light as well. We initially thought it was an airplane, and soon my uncles pulled into a country gas station. The moment my uncle turned off the truck, we told them to look. They looked and they thought it was a low-flying airplane as well, which seemed logical since there was a small airfield nearby. A few moments later, 2 state troopers showed up, parked at the gas station, and came out of their vehicle. They lit up a cigarette and started talking. Another small pickup truck showed up, and I heard this older man telling the troopers about the strange lights in the sky. I wanted to tell the troopers about the light we saw, but my uncles came out of the gas station and we took off. We arrived at my grandma's house, and my uncle told us to go inside and go to sleep. My grandparents went to Mexico for vacation and to visit family, so nobody was home but just us. They told us they would be back in the morning, at which point we went inside. We talked about the fish we caught and made jokes. Then, I brought up the light in the sky. The moment I brought it up, we heard the neighbor's dog barking around the house. We went outside to see what was going on when we heard a low humming sound, and I looked up and saw the same strange light close to the house. We all screamed and ran inside the house. We locked the doors and turned off all the lights. Something that looked like lightning outside rang out, and we could still hear the humming sound. The dog stopped barking, and while we hid under the table in the kitchen, the lightning continued outside the windows, but there was no thunder afterwards, and not even a single cloud in the sky above. We all stayed awake till my uncle returned the next morning, and we then told them what happened. They looked at each other before they told us the dogs were barking at their house as well, and their girlfriends saw the same kind of lightning. Everyone in the room just stood there looking at each other. There was no other explanation except that we experienced a UFO. This story probably won't sound scary, but it is easily the most chilling experience of my life. I've recently gotten into watching urbex videos on YouTube and wanted to get into the hobby myself. We have a mansion not too far from here that's abandoned, and so I figured I'd start there. The place is called Ivy Manor Farm. It was owned by a physician in the 1900s, but the owner left without a word. He once released a patient saying she was healthy, who then returned to the small town that we live in and stabbed a girl in the town square. Enough background though. Having found the ideal location, I decided I would head in that night under the cover of darkness. It was raining, and with my hood up, I made my way to the fallen iron fence. As I did this, I couldn't help but notice all the cool scenery, like an old car and a pool out back. I took out my camera and began taking photos, but as I did, a rhythmic clicking sound filled the air that was followed by a psychotic laughter that left my hair standing on their ends. The laughter came from the only room I had avoided at this point, the basement. My fight or flight instinct kicked in, and even as a 20-year-old 6'5" male, I decided to get the heck out of there. Running toward the front door, I couldn't help but notice a warm glow coming from beneath the floor. I stopped and decided to see what it was. A dumb decision, I know. I felt terrified, as when I went down the glow I found a man swimming in trunks, spinning in an office chair cackling. That was it. Urban exploration wasn't for me at all. I quickly turned and ran, knocking over a gas canister as I did. At that point I could hear something scurrying up the basement steps as I rushed outside and out the gateway to the mansion. I turned just in time to see the creepy guy in the swimming truck smiling, and another 2 figures further away. Needless to say, my urban exploration days are through. I've never gone back, nor have I tried urban exploration ever again. This happened 10 plus years ago, so I'm paraphrasing for all parties. It's not the creepiest story ever, but it's definitely unsettling to say the least. My dad and I were hiking on this mountain trail that was really steep and treacherous. It's not an exaggeration. At some points, I was worried I'd fall to my death over the edge if I took one misstep. It wasn't a long hike, but it was definitely super challenging. Eventually, we made it to the top. We had brought some food with us, so we sat down and started snacking on it. Maybe around 10 minutes later, this guy comes out of the bush. A lone bush. He literally came out of the bush. It was so obvious he was hiding there, let me just say. And I'm not trying to sound like a rude person or anything, but this guy was really big. An unhealthily large man. My first thought was, how did this guy even make it up here? Again, I don't want to be rude, but I was genuinely curious as how he made it up there. I was out of breath, and so was my dad. The guy was not out of breath at all. The interaction with this guy was very odd, but it went like this. The guy asked, "Hey, can I sit with you guys?" Before we could answer, he sat down on the rock next to us and started talking. He asked the most cliche, creepy as heck questions like, "Where do you guys live? And how old are you? Are you married?" I was 14, by the way, "And you're so pretty." My dad immediately stands up, gives me a head nod like, let's get away from him and leave, and tells the guy he just wants to spend time with his daughter. My dad was super polite, but I could tell he was thrown off by this guy. We start moving around our area, and the guy says, "Hey, F you!" pretty aggressively. My dad says something along the lines of, "Watch your mouth, my kid is here." We did have a rifle on us, and that didn't seem to register to the guy. He definitely saw it, but it was on my dad's back. The guy just sat there on the rock. He would not go away. He was staring us down. I guess in his defense, there wasn't really anywhere for him to go except back into the bush or down the mountain. He just kept staring at us. He gave me the most uneasy, uncomfortable feeling. This situation was classic scary movie stuff, but my first thought was he was probably some mentally disabled guy, or maybe mentally disturbed or something like that, and was probably just harmless. But after we moved, he started threatening us with stuff like, "I'll beat your butt, and you better not talk to me like that." Like what? We were pretty nice in asking you to leave us alone. That's when alarms really started to go off in my head. The situation really started to escalate pretty quickly after the threats. So my dad takes the rifle off his back and whispers to me to stand up and start walking down the mountain, and he'll be right behind me. The next part is all from hearing movement and footsteps because I was following my dad's orders and walking back down the mountain. But I could hear the guy starting after my dad, asking why we were leaving. My dad turns around and screams at him to back off. I could hear the click from the safety and thought this is seriously flipping happening. He was trying to be a badass. The gun was for bears. The mountain was known for bears, and we had food on us. After the guy finally backed off, my dad caught up to me and told me everything was fine and just keep walking. We made it back to our car, locked the doors, and drove out of there as fast as we could. To this day though, I don't know how that guy got up there. People hunt in other parts of the mountain and hike there during the appropriate seasons. You legally cannot live on that mountain. There's nowhere to put a house. How long he'd been up there, and what in the world his intentions were, I guess I'll never know. I'm just glad we had the rifle. That guy was definitely more dangerous than any bear out there that day.